Okay.
Good afternoon, Monty.
Hello, how are you?
Absolutely awesome. You?
Doing great. Hello from sunny South Florida.
Sunny South Florida. How's the weather out there?
It's actually quite beautiful. It's sunny, and actually we had a little cold front, so it's about 60 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, are you busy? You should be.
I'm absolutely swamped going through the auction submissions and getting ready for the NamesCon convention and the live and online auctions. So very, very busy.
So before we jump into the auctions, if you could tell a little bit about yourself, please.
Sure. Well, I got into the domain name business in 1995. I was one of the first pioneers in the domain auction and brokerage business. I created the first online brokerage site for for customers and for our own names in 1995, 1996. Pioneered the first live and online auctions. I'm the former founder and president of moniker.com and snapnames.com, and sold my business to oversee.net and ran the domain sponsor division for them for 3 years. And then started RightOfTheDot after my contract was up, and kept doing live and online auctions and high-end brokerage ever since. So I've sold more than $500 million worth of domain names over the 25 years I've been in the business.
Oh, sorry. Did you say more than 500 million?
Yes.
God.
Yeah, of everybody else's names, not my own, or else I probably wouldn't be doing this anymore.
Can I ask you the story of wallstreet.com?
Wallstreet.com?
Yes, absolutely amazing name. And
yeah, well, that was the first $1 million sale for the industry that happened in April of 1999. I registered over 2,000 domain names between 1995 and 1999, and decided that it was better to actually attract a bunch of customers that also registered really good names like me that didn't have any way of selling them. So I created an online auction system and a bidding format, and we went out and sought high-profile domain names from sellers, and then I partnered up with a company that was also trying to work on wallstreet.com, and then we brought it to market and then sold it to actually a casino business in St. Kitts.
Casino.
Yeah. So you would think that it would be a financial institution, and there was financial institutions that were bidding on it, but the winning bidder actually converted the domain name and turned it into a betting site on whether the stock market was going to go up or down every day.
Wow.
And it was part of a St. Kitts casino. So it's actually sold a couple times after that. I was involved in the second sale, but it sold two or three times. Yes.
And what was the price for the second time?
Well, the first price was just over $1 million. So it was $1.03 million. The second time it was like $1.7 million. But I heard it just recently. It's been on the market again for that. And then later on that year, we sold the first $2 million domain name, which was autos.com in auction. And it was an online auction as well. And after those two sales in 1999, it really validated the domain name industry right before the recession and the internet crash. And so it was really weird and ironic timing that 2 or 3 big domain names would sell like that. And then all of a sudden the internet was in question on whether it was going to survive or not when the internet crashed in 1999.
And how did you register those names? I remember I did build my first website in 99, I think. And it was a tough nut.
Yeah, well, I started registering names in 1995 and registered a couple thousand names between 1995 and 1996. I did not register that name. We brokered that name on behalf of a seller.
Okay.
So it was a seller that we went out, and same with autos.com. We went out and we were the only, I was the only person in the industry at the time that was really selling domain names in the aftermarket. And so we had a compelling, story to tell. And we went out and did cold calling and picked up the phones and called companies and end users and seeing if they wanted to get their domain name. This is before Google and Yahoo and internet advertising. There was only a couple big internet companies on the web at that time. Netscape was the browser of choice.
I do remember those times. Yes.
Prodigy and CompuServe were the were your platforms. AOL was just starting to send discs out on in the mail. We were working on modems, not high speed dial. You know, we were on dial up lines at the time. So.
Alta Vista.
Yep. Lycos.
Yes.
Good times. All kinds of search engines from A to Z.
So I understand that you are the man to go if somebody wants to put something on the auction.
Well, I pioneered online auctions back in the late 90s, and then in 2004, a customer of mine and also a good friend, Rick Schwartz, started a conference called Traffic. And the Traffic Conference, first Traffic Conference was here in Delray, Florida, which is just about 30 minutes up the road. And there was about 200 domain industry professionals that got together, and we created the first real domain conference, I guess. There was a gathering a year before that in San Francisco, but the first real conference was in the early 2000s, like 2003, 2004. And we put up domain names on a board and let people put up their domain names on a board, and then people came and wrote in their bids, kind of like a silent auction scenario. And it was on a big display, and we sold something like $50,000 or $60,000 worth of domain names in that first go around. And then I was familiar with Christie's and Sotheby's auctions at the time for art and wine and, you know, cars and stuff. And I was like, what if we brought a live auctioneer to the next conference and treated the domain name like it was a really valuable asset, which it is. You know, we kind of turned domain names from commodities to assets. And by doing so, I went and found an antique auctioneer that was here locally, an older gentleman. And he had a good sense of humor, and he decided to come on board with me. I gave him about a week lesson on what domain names were, and you know, told him, like, just pretend this is a piece of valuable art or a valuable antique, and even though you see a name on the board, you know, treat it as if it's the most valuable piece of art. And the next year we came in with a live auction that was projected basically on a you know, screen, you know, through a PowerPoint presentation.
Yes.
And we did the second auction in 2005, and there was no online component. It was just everybody in the room with their paddles. You know, they had pieces of paper with a number written down, and we sold about $300,000 or $400,000 worth of domain names that second year. The third year, it started to increase, obviously, and then I hooked up with a live auction system that ran the back end for Christie's auctions. And I went and spent a couple of days with them in Tampa. That's where they were based. And I converted their system to do domain names. And then from that point on, we used that system through last year, every year. And I did auctions all over the world and various conferences, not only domain conferences, but I was at the SEO conferences. I was at SMX. I was at AdTech. I did the adult industry auctions. I did the gaming affiliate convention auctions, casino affiliate convention. I did the dating convention auction. So we segmented all the domain names for those particular industries, and then, you know, brought these names to each of these conferences and held a live auction on site. And I brought in and flew in the live auctioneer, and it made the conference more exciting, and people got true assets for their online presence during these conferences. So obviously that carried forth as I started Moniker, and I conducted sometimes between 9 and 15 auctions a year around the world, all domain name auctions in different market segments, you know, in all those different market segments in Europe, Asia, and also the United States, of course. And we became pretty famous for that and very successful, and sold tens of millions of dollars worth of domain names. Now, at the same time, I was running Snap Names in 2007 through 2010. So we were doing online, you know, expiration auctions of domain names at the same time. So we were collecting a lot of data on what domain names sell for, who the end user buyers are. And so it got more and more successful because of that. And then I sold Moniker to oversee.net. We did some of the big auctions at their conferences that were in LA and in Amsterdam and a couple other places. Excuse me. And then as RightOfTheDot, when I started RightOfTheDot, to help consulting with some of the new TLDs that came into the market. Richard Lau from NamesCon, who created NamesCon, came to me and said, "Hey, how would you like to do an auction at our domain conference and be the auctioneer for that?" And that's how that started 5 or 6 years ago. And so we're the main auction house for all the big domain conferences still to this day. So we have a partnership with NamesCon and have sold millions of dollars worth of domain names. And now we have 400 or 500 people in the room with paddles, and then we have a couple hundred people online bidding at the same time. And we have a true market valuation system going on, because there's domain investors, there's private equity firms and venture capital firms, along with end users, all bidding on these valuable assets. And so there's a good market for it still to this day.
And how do you get those 400 to 500 people in the room?
Well, at NamesCon, there's between 1,000 and 1,200 or 1,300 people that come to the conference. Okay. A lot of them come to the conference to participate in the auction. So it's usually the first or second day of that conference. It's one of the main events. So we hold the live auction in the room. We provide food and beverage, and people come in and raise their paddles, and then there's people online bidding at the same time. So we already have a captive audience because people have coming in from all over the world to attend the conference. So that's why we do the auction there.
Any champagne, wine?
Oh yeah, champagne, wine,
of course.
Good open bar, food. When people are drinking and bidding on names, it's more fun.
Oh, absolutely. I have to admit that I've been at one of the domain name auctions. Yeah. I think it was organized. It was in Europe. I think the organizers were ABN or something like that. I
did the ABN auctions and all the affiliate, the affiliate convention conferences, and
it was horrible.
It was horrible.
Absolutely horrible. The names were rubbish.
Was it our auction?
No. It was Amsterdam Webmaster Access.
Oh, okay, yeah. So a lot of people have tried to duplicate the live auction, but it's very hard to do. You have to.
It's a good idea. Yes.
Yeah, it's a good idea because it brings fluidity to the market where it's kind of stagnant. You can put names up on platforms and bidding platforms and hope that people come to your names. But when you have a live auction, and I personally go through every single domain name that's submitted and give it the eyeball test. I've been doing it for so long. So for this auction, for example, there's been 48,000 names or something submitted, and I have to weed that down to
40,000 names.
48,000 names to date. There'll be over 55,000 names before we start. And so I have to pick out what I think is going to have a market value. I don't get it right all the time, but I'm pretty good at it. And
what is your selection process?
Well, it goes off of we first of all, we test the names. We put it up on our platform. We look at traffic. We look at bid interest. We look at click-through rates. We look at keyword value, PPC value. I have over 1.5 million domain name database of previous sales, so we can match up keywords that has previous sold in auction or on in expiration auctions.
Yes.
I've conducted over 500,000 appraisals, so I know what domain names are worth for the most part. So names are selected by quality of name, of course, what reserve price. If there's a good name and it's priced out of market, it doesn't make any sense to put it into auction if it's not going to sell and just waste a spot. But if it's priced at low reserve and the market decides what the value is, and then there's bidding competition, that's the key. That's how auctions are successful. Is that if you have an asset, and you price it fairly or underprice it, and let the bidding war decide what the market value is, it tends to go up above expected reserves, because you have human nature and human behavior that the thrill of winning, the time invested, and when you're investing and you're bidding back and forth on an auction, you want to win that auction, you want to win that asset, and so that's why auctions are successful most of the time. And domain names are no different. It works the same way. So I encourage our submitters to submit names at the lowest possible reserves or at no reserve, and let the market decide what the value is at. And we definitely have the market. 53% of our names are sold to end users. So that means end user corporations and end user buyers are buying them, even though there's domain investors in the room, they also have a chance to get the names as well. So you have a good mix between end users and domain investors and newcomers to the market, all bidding on names that they're interested in.
Okay, here's the first comment. And good afternoon or good morning or good evening to everybody. And one and the only, the auction god, the domain god, Monte Cahn.
Yeah. And I see Lars said Moniker rocked. I know. I started Moniker out of my bedroom in 1997 and brought it to a real company. And we did things a little bit different. We handled domain names like assets instead of commodities. And we were the first company to monetize domain names through traffic monetization, and then use domain name sales and brokerage and auctions to monetize those names. And then we provided a really good registration system that did bulk registrations and
actually, I actually had this thought that Monica was all about the privacy and all about managing proper domain portfolios. Yes, they don't get stolen and stuff like that. So if you had something valuable, you would go. A person would go to Monte.
Exactly. So we created a theft protection system that was second to none. We were the only registrar that never had a domain theft. And we had, I can't tell all the secret sauce, but there was a lot of hands-on and automation behind that. I invented WhoIs Privacy for the entire industry for a client named Yun Yi, who used to be the biggest and most valuable domainer in history. He sold his portfolio to Marchex in 2004 for $165 million. Anyway, he was getting solicited constantly, and we created a privacy service and a WhoIs Privacy service that screened out spam and solicitations and became the standard in the industry, and now everybody uses it. So now privacy is everywhere, but it was created at Moniker based off of the needs of certain clients that didn't want anybody to know who they were. And just like having your names, just like having a phone number privately listed in the phone book and not knowing who that is. So we provided that service. We were very innovative when I ran Moniker. We created and invented a lot of things, including bulk domain management. You could manage thousands of names and do bulk changes on DNS and contact changes. No one was able to do that. We had shortest time to live on DNS and had a whole server farm in our office that ran DNS and brought names up faster than anybody else. And of course, the combination of registration, monetization, and sales all kind of circling and looping together help people have a true money market account at a registrar, except it was a registrar for domain names. And so we did it differently. And now, lots of companies have copied all that, like Uni Registry and even GoDaddy does some of that now.
Even I understand that you have actually partnered up with GoDaddy.
Yeah. So GoDaddy, of course, through acquisition, not on purpose, but through acquisition, kind of owns NamesCon. So for 3 or 4 years, I've been, so GoDaddy owns the NamesCon conference, but it was through an acquisition of Hosting Europe. Their Hosting Europe acquisition, the Hosting Europe group owned NamesCon, and then they bought Hosting Europe for their hosting system. It just so happened that NamesCon was part of that acquisition. So it only makes sense that the largest domain registrar and services company should be involved in the auction process. So I made the switch this year to move off of NameJet and move on to GoDaddy as the pre-bidding platform and the post-auction, what we call the extended auction platform. We're still doing the live auction with a new system called ProxyBid, which is one of the largest online live auction systems. So I made that change as well this year. And so anyway, excited to have GoDaddy on board, and they've been a good partner, and they have a lot of bidders and users and end users also, corporations and small businesses that have been participating in pre-bidding. So excited to have them on board and working with them this year.
So now we'll jump to the few questions. And to everybody who's watching, so we've got 16 people watching live. You are most welcome to ask your questions to Monte about your domain names, and maybe even you can ask, you can submit your best domain name and ask, hey, can it be accepted into NamesCon?
Yeah, well, it's getting a little bit late in the process, so it has to be right away. But I'll throw a couple important links out there so people can see what's going on. But If you go to ROTD.com, you can get information. If you click on the NamesCon auction link, you can get all the information you need on how to participate in remote bidding. If you're not going to be able to attend the NamesCon conference, it gives information about attending the NamesCon conference. It gives the link on how to submit names, how to participate in buying names. All that's right there at the ROTD.com website / NamesCon auction. So you can see it in the top menu bar. If you want to see,
or in the description of this video as well. I've put it in already.
Oh, okay, good.
It's there.
And then if you want to see what's going on in pre-bidding, which isn't the live auction yet, but it's names that everybody's expressed interest in, you go to auctions.godaddy.com and you'll see a banner right at the top, and it clicks.
Can you show us? Can you show us, please?
Sure. Where
I know that we did experiment quickly about sharing the screens and.
All right, so share the screen.
Yes.
All right, and then I can just type in the tab.
Of course.
All right.
Let us see. If the tab doesn't work, we can go with the whole.
Yes. Okay, there we are.
Fantastic. Awesome.
All right.
And let me remove the less important things. And here we go. Yes.
Yeah, so right here is an example of some of the most popular domain names that are in auction right now. So you can see it organized by bidders or by price. Okay. You can just click on any one of these top tabs and you can see them, what names are getting the most interest. So add.com has a price of $201,000 already.
My apologies, Monty. Can we go to the very beginning? So once we go to the GoDaddy, where did you get this link from?
Okay, so if you go to auctions.godaddy.com.
Okay, yes. So this auction will appear there as well.
Well, yeah, if you go there, you'll see a banner right at the top of the page, and it says NamesCon auction, NamesCon RightOfTheDot auction. You click that banner, and you'll go right to our auction. It's called Event 7, so that's what the
Event 7.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So add.com.
Yeah. Oh, should I go back?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course.
All right, so let me go back. All right, so. Can you see that screen right there?
Yes.
All right. So add.com, I just selected it by top bid price, but you can also select it by the number of offers. Whoop. So the names with the top offers is shirts.com, for example, has 98 bids already. Now, what's behind the scene with GoDaddy is that you don't only have bidders, but you also have something called watchers. So, which you cannot see on this screen, but we have access to that information. So it might be that somebody doesn't want to place a bid yet, but they want to watch it because they want to participate when it goes live. So there's bidders and offers, and then there's watchers, which are not shown here. And there's tons of watchers on all these names as well. So we feel that we have a good selection of names with a lot of action here. There's over 55 names that have hit reserve already. A lot of them are at no and low reserve, so there's a good chance to get names there at great prices. And then, of course, there's some great names that are one word. Here's a one letter.de name, x.de, that has 46 bidders on it and tons of watchers already.
So 11,000. And what is the minimum for the x.de?
Well, it's a lot more than that, but the current bid price doesn't indicate what the end user sale is going to be because it's just what the current pre-bids are. So this is not really an auction yet. It's just in pre-bidding.
Just pre-bidding.
So what this is showing is that there's a lot of interest in all these names. So this is just like kind of an indication of interest sheet. So it's not a live auction yet. It's not an online auction yet. People are bidding because they're interested in it. So once it goes to auction, obviously this is all going to pick up, and a lot of these are going to hit reserve or exceed reserve.
And all these people will check all the other names as well, of course.
Yeah. So everybody that's part of these auctions, all these bidders, from page to page to page, which there's, I think there's over 1,000 or so bidders or something, even more. They'll all get notices over the next couple of days on how to participate in the live auction online and the extended auction. So what we do is we take this information and plus all the testing information I've been doing, and I'm going to select 125 names from this list. 125. Now remember, I had 48,000 names submitted so far. I had to take 800 names from 48,000 and put them into this platform. Then from this platform, I'm going to select 125 names that I think are going to work in the live auction. And then the remaining names that are left in this list are going to go to what's called the extended auction. So the extended auction runs through February 14th, and that gives another 2 weeks of online bidding for all those names that you see here that aren't selected for the live auction. In the live auction, we're going to have probably 50 or 60% of the names sell in live auction. And then the remaining of the names that didn't sell will come back to this platform and then be part of the extended auction. So we'll give us another 2 weeks to close more sales through this extended auction platform.
Can I ask you why people are putting in the bids right now?
Because they want to participate in the live or online auction. So they're getting all signed up and putting in they're putting in their indication of interest.
So actually, that is how you apply for live auction, do you? Or
you have to sign up for a GoDaddy account, and you have to be qualified to bid. So that's one reason, and the other reason is because these people are interested in these names, and so even though the live auction hasn't started yet, and you can see that it says time left to the right, it says 24 days. So that means from this point to the end of the extended auction, there's 24 days left. So, but next Thursday at 4:30 Central Time,
yes,
that's when the live auction will start, and it will be in Austin, Texas at NamesCon. So there'll be, 1,000 people at the conference. 500 of them will be in the room, and several hundred of them will have paddles in their hands and bidding. And then many of the people that couldn't attend the auction or couldn't attend the conference will have the opportunity to bid online using our online bidding platform. So you can sign up for that by going to ROTD.com and hit the NamesCon live auction link. I'm sorry, the NamesCon RightOfTheDot auction, and it will give you the link to how to sign up for our proxy bid live bidding system.
Monty, the auction says 24 days. Now we are on January 21st.
Yes.
The auction day is 31st, is it?
No, so it's the 30th.
30th.
Okay, so the reason why it says 24 days is because that's the last day of the extended auction. So there'll be 120 names from this list that will go to live auction on the 30th. The rest of the names will stay in this auction and then go into what's called the extended auction, and that will start as soon as the live auction is over.
But still, a person doesn't need to put any bets to participate on 30th.
Well, for the live auction, you do. Yeah, but you're not going to be bidding on this platform anymore. You're going to be moving to the live auction system.
Yes. Okay.
So 120 names will be removed from the system and go to the live auction, and everybody who ever expressed interest on it or put a bid on it or is watching it will get information on how to bid remotely and online to participate in that auction.
Okay. So Lars is saying, okay.
All right. So I should go back to the screen. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So it says we're conducting a very important domainer meet in Amsterdam in March called the Black Label Appreciation Group.
Okay.
I can't see the rest of the message, but would love to see you there. Okay. Well, it's possible I can come. What I got to know what date it is in March. I'm heading to. I'm going to be out of town March 3rd through the 8th, but don't know when that is. But I'd be happy to participate if I can.
Lars from the DN Forum? No,
I don't know.
No. Anyway, so let's jump to the few other questions on DN Forum. Castian, who a nickname Castian, he says that he's the managing director of dnforum.com. Says, ask Monty if he is up for meeting for me and Oliver in Amsterdam next month.
In Amsterdam next month?
Yes.
In February?
So that's February, yes.
Yeah, that's possible. I have a lot of travel going on in February, but if anybody wants to shoot me an email with any information or questions or whatever, you can at Monte, MONTE at RightOfTheDot.com. So most everybody has my email, but Monte, MONTE at RightOfTheDot.com.
Come on, you own this, ROTD.com. Why does everybody have to type in the long name?
Because that's our main brand. I used ROTD.com as a shortener just for the auction stuff. So, and brokerage.
Not for the emails, no?
Yeah, I'll still get emails at ROTD.com too, but it's easier just to do Monte at rightofthedot.com.
Or what is the very best domain name you have yourself? And probably you don't want to sell. Is there one?
I've got a lot of healthcare names and a lot of I've got a lot of medical healthcare names. I mean, I'm open to selling for any of the names I have. I have a lot of domain industry names. It's hard to say which one. I sold one of my premium assets in the auction last year or the year before, stop.com. And yeah, stop.com, which is a word that everybody sees every single day while they're driving or on the web or in words. I made a choice several years ago, back in the late 90s and early 2000s, that I wasn't going to go and acquire more and more names like everybody else did and compete with my own customers. So I decided to go, how can I serve those that are like me, that have a bunch of domain names, and make it easier for them to manage, sell, auction, monetize, broker, and created companies and platforms around that. So one would say that if I chose the other route, I might have a lot more money in my pocket. But it's been very successful for me and the people that have worked for me all these years. All my brokers from the past happen to be now having their own brokerage businesses, and we're friendly competitors. But I helped create an industry with a bunch of brokerage houses now that that I helped start, and now they all are feeding their families on brokering domain names. So it's pretty nice that the industry has gone from, one company, which was ours, that did the first brokerage. Now there's many companies brokering domain names and selling them. So that's pretty cool.
Okay. So Lars says, yes, Castian, that's him. So that's in March, not February then. Yes.
Okay. In March. So I just need to know what the dates are, and if I can't make it, but I'll do the best I can to make it. I love Amsterdam. So.
Oh, Amsterdam is awesome.
Yeah. It's a great city.
Yes. So let us see. Name pros. Shopbydomain.com. Oh, God. His question is, when is NamesCon moving to other regions?
Well, actually, so I don't run the NamesCon conference, but NamesCon moved for the first time from Las Vegas to Austin, Texas. So it did change venues this year. I don't know how long they're gonna stay in Austin, Texas, but they did do they did do a European auction. I mean, a European show in Portugal last June, and I did an auction there. Small auction, but it was still good. It still was pretty vibrant and active. And this year they're going to be going to Germany, I think, in the summer. So I think they'll announce that at the conference this year. But they are moving a European or a second show around different regions for sure. So I think there's going to be one U.S. based show, like there always has been, and then there'll be a regional European show or maybe an Asian show, also tagged onto that every year. But NamesCon will probably announce that this year.
Okay, the next question is quite long, and I will put it on the screen.
Okay.
It will be easier for you to understand as well. Here you go. Here's a question for you. Internet.domains. So the question is about new generics, new Gs.
Yeah.
And the question was, how could you advocate for the new Gs very strongly and then shift very strongly away from them?
I have not shifted away from new TLDs. I started a business helping new TLDs become in existence, actually. We were really proponents of new TLDs and certain extensions, obviously. So I helped .club and consulted with them and help them be successful, and .global, and did some work for many of the other new TLDs. So I'm an advocate for it, but everybody expects the new TLDs to take off immediately, and it's going to take time. So even .com took 20 years to get off the ground. So it just takes time, and we have to make choices in terms of auctions and sales on what the market is interested in for the time being. And so there are some new TLDs sprinkled in the list of domain names that we have for sale.
Okay.
But it can't, unless I'm doing a new TLD auction, which I've done. I did that for .global. I did that for .club. We're one of the biggest sellers of .club names from these auctions and help them rack up $300,000 plus sales because of our auctions, because of me. And same with .global. I did a .global specific auction at the ICANN meeting in London. God, what was it? 4 or 5 years ago. And we held an auction right there during the ICANN conference. And so, and we've done several other big sales in .xyz and so on and so forth. So, and I've helped Uni Registry with a lot of their extensions.
How is the Europe for you? A bit slow, no?
How's what?
How is the Europe for you?
The Europe?
Yes.
What do you mean the Europe?
The European market approach.
Oh, well, when you hold it's different than holding in the U.S. because then you have in a European conference, for example, or an auction, yes, you have a diversity of European countries and people representing a bunch of different countries. So to select specific names in specific languages and specific country code extensions or TLDs in a European conference is a lot more difficult and tricky than it is if you're doing a U.S. based show, where .com is primarily of interest, since .com was created by the United States and it became an international domain name. When you get to Europe, which I've done tons of European auctions and conferences, again, I did domain conferences in Amsterdam and affiliate, adult conferences and casino affiliate conventions and SEO conferences all throughout Europe and Asia. The European market tends to not spend as much money. They're a little bit tighter with their money, and I don't know why that is necessarily, because they're sometimes they'll spend some of the biggest money when they're in the United States and bidding on auctions, but in Europe, we hold our auctions legally in the United States. So even when we're in Europe, VAT tax doesn't apply. So we save on the VAT tax because everything's transacted and transferred within the United States. So we don't have to worry about VAT if that's of interest or whatever. Even though I did that domain conference in Portugal, the sales were conducted in the United States. So even though the live auctions were won in Europe, yes, transfers and taking in money comes in and out of place in the United States. So we don't have to charge VAT because of that.
Okay, it doesn't make sense.
So anyway, to answer your question, it's a I wouldn't say it's a slower market. It's a more complicated and diverse market, because if I'm in Amsterdam, yeah, sure, if I have .nl names and Amsterdam and Netherlands-based domain names for that market, and I know that only Netherlands attendees are coming, then that's one story. But if people are coming from Austria and Germany and United Kingdom and throughout Europe, then I have to be conscious about all those other extensions, country code extensions, different extensions, and you only have a small segment of each conference that represent those countries, instead of a broad audience that represents the United States, for example. So, it's more complicated for sure. And so the auctions tend to be smaller in terms of dollar, in terms of, total dollar sold, yes, but the percentages are the same. I just put lower dollar and different types of domain names in. So our percentages of sales is about the same. It's over 50%, which is good. It's just a lower overall value.
Okay. And meanwhile, we can ask if Lars is still. Lars, do you want to put up a domain on NamesCon to represent DN Forum?
Again, I'm nailing down the live list like at the end of this week. So only a handful of names are being added to the list at this point.
Awesome. So the next question is from Cool Jub. I wonder what Monte thinks about the takeover of .org.
I worked with .org a lot back in the day. So we were one of the top sellers of .org names when I ran Moniker. And I'm kind of neutral to what's going on. I mean, I know there's a lot of banter back and forth about what directions it's going to, but .org is allowed to sell their extension. It's even though it's it was designed to be a nonprofit extension, it never ended up to be that way. It was never enforced by ICANN to be a nonprofit only domain name. So as everyone knows, you can operate a for-profit business on a .org, a .net, and a .com. even though the first initial attempt, the intent was that .org would be for nonprofits and NGOs and organizations that were really nonprofit, and .net was for networks and networks of people and companies, and then .com was for commercial or commerce for profit.
Yes.
.org was still allowed to operate that way. So I know everybody's bashing it, but the company that owned .org was totally allowed to sell to the. So would I like to see .org continue in a for the public type offering and for a good purpose? Of course, and it has the best potential to do that. There's also some new TLDs that serve that purpose. Like there is a .ngo, domain name now, and some other nonprofit domain names that are in the new TLD strings.
But that extension isn't as established.
Well, of course, not any new extensions are established. The oldest new extensions. Back in the old day, everybody forgot that when there was .com, .net, and .org, then came .info and .biz and a number of other extensions that tried to make it, and some of them were very successful and still are successful. So we sold tons of .info names and .biz names and lots of different names. .tv, which is a country code for Tuvalu, which is a sinking island in the middle of the Pacific, became one of the first rewarded domain names from the country code to meaning television or TV. Back in the day, right when .com was thriving. So it's how it's marketed and how it's used and how it's restricted or not restricted, which can make a domain name very successful. I am a believer over time that the new generations of users will like the new TLDs as much as the existing TLDs, or better sometimes. Like my kids, they don't care whether they use a .com or not. They want something that's relevant. So if my daughter is going to be a lawyer, I'm sure she'd be very happy with a .law or .lawyer or .attorney name rather than a .com name, if she can't get the extension that she wants, or the keyword in front of it.
I think the kids are a bit different. I've got 4 daughters. They are talking to Siri only.
Well, it doesn't matter, but they're all getting websites too, and so and starting to start businesses, and they're getting things that are more relevant to what they want, and they don't. It's the perfect analogy, and I've said this many times. So those of you who hear the broadcast or whatever, once upon a time in the United States, we had toll-free numbers. We still have them. There are 800 numbers.
Yes, and
the 800 number, there was an 800, and then there would be a string of 7 more digits. Those 7 more digits, people would go after and get the best digits to spell what the name was. So it would be 1-800-BUY-CARS, BUYCARS. And those numbers would correlate on the keyboard, on the telephone pad, on how that spelled out. So people forgot the phone number, but they would never forget what the word was. That's what domain names were back 25 years ago. So the 800 numbers ran out. All those buy cars and buy car and see doctors and 1-800 flowers and all that stuff. As soon as those numbers were gone, they then came up with an 888. And then there was buy cars, and then an 877, and an 866, an 855, an 833. And now there's 20 toll-free numbers, all with the string buy cars, and they're all registered by different people. So if you look at the domain name industry, it's the same thing. Once upon a time, there was .com, then .net and .org, and then .info and .biz. And then now there's .cars and .sex and .help and law and, all these extensions. And so it's the same scenario, and it was accepted. And of course, the 800 number was the first, just like .com was the first. So it became the most valuable. But our children don't even use 800 and toll-free numbers anymore because they have these. And these are all free calls.
Yep.
So as markets change, so do behaviors, and so do what's popular and what's not. And I do believe that some of the new extensions will become popular because it's relevant. And, our children don't care whether it's an 800 number or it's a .com. They want relevancy. and something that's quick and easy. I mean, a lot of their apps are on .io and all these other extensions that are, made for them to made easier, and they don't know what it means. So anyway, that's my advocacy for new extensions over time. It's just going to take time. And because there's 1,000 of them all at one time, it's going to be like any other business model. There'll be the 80-20 rule or the 90-10 rule, and some of them will be very, very successful, and some of them will fail, and some of them have, and some of them will find their way over time.
Which ones are your favorite ones? Let's say top 3, top 5.
Well, I'm a big proponent of .club because club is spelled club in all languages, even in Chinese. So the club guys are smart guys. I know them personally. They're here in Fort Lauderdale, actually. And there's literally millions of clubs. There's math clubs and chess clubs and sports clubs and gambling clubs and, family clubs. And, almost every word precursing the word club makes linguistic sense. So you could say, table club, light club, car club. Almost every dictionary term makes sense in front of the word club. So things that make linguistic sense to me are the most common, things that I think are successful domain names.
Yes, you cannot mess up with that extension.
Yeah, and even when you go to China, you see a Chinese word and the word club. So yeah, you don't see a Chinese word for club because there isn't one. It's club. Yes. So they have Chinese word VIP and then it's club. So I'm a big proponent of .club. I think it makes sense a lot. I think .web when it comes out is going to be very successful. I think it'll compete with .com.
Yes, there were huge hopes for that one.
Yeah, of course, because it makes linguistic sense to do that. I mean, XYZ is trying to do that, just being a generic extension. Daniel Nagari, who's a friend of mine, also did. People can say what they want, but he's got millions of domain names registered. Because it's a generic term. And then as soon as Google registered their corporate name in .xyz, it made more sense to everybody. So things that have linguistic sense or make linguistic sense to me and are non-restrictive are things that I think will be successful, over time, for sure.
You see.
Yeah.
Okay. Then a question from NamePros. There is a member, Tony K, 2000. Like top member VIP from 2007, and he says, I would like to ask him about his business plans. Monica.com registrar under his leadership was good. Now it is not that good. How about starting a new registrar with Monte as a CEO, or purchasing an existing one?
Yeah, I've thought about it, and I actually had the opportunity to take Moniker back
really?
once or twice. Yeah, so. Trust me, when you create something that's successful out of your bedroom and turn it into a major company and employ people and put food on the table for your employees, and then you become have a great reputation in the domain industry. You hate to see someone else destroy that or turn it upside down. And have I thought twice about selling the business when I did? Of course I did. I when you have something in your heart like that and you think that the next phase and the buyer of that business will turn it into something even better because they have more resources. That's why I did that, because I joined a organization, oversee.net, who made a lot of promises that they would take it to the next level, and then they didn't. And unfortunately, they didn't invest the money that they agreed to do so. And then, we ultimately ended up in a lawsuit as a result of that and a number of other things. So you learn and you move on and you move on to other things. In today's market, I think there's too many registrars to compete with. There's a lot of registrars that have taken the Moniker model and made it successful. Uni Registry is a perfect example. They basically took everything I pioneered, and that's
fantastic.
That's what Uni Registry is. Yeah, Frank Schilling, took what we did and he turned it into what he did. And a lot of other companies did that with monetization that we did and a lot of our things that we pioneered. So I'm glad that we put some standards in the industry that are used today and common practice. But to start another new registrar and try to get everybody to move their domain names over after they're all with various registrars, it's really hard to do. And then build that brand loyalty again and offer, when we were a registrar, we were pioneering things that were never invented before. And that's what made it exciting. And unfortunately that innovation I don't see it in the domain industry right now. So there's a lot of companies making attempts at it, but I haven't seen some of the things that we used to do, that were revolutionary. The good news is that domain names have gained value over time, and they've proven that they belong in our e-commerce circle, and so that's a good thing, and I'm glad that we helped put our stamp and we helped do that for everybody. And we were one of the first ones to take a domain name and take it from being a commodity to an asset by doing resales and auction sales and brokerage sales and monetization, and we made a lot of people a lot of money, which is good. Like your former guest, Paige Howell.
Yes.
Was on the show last week.
Paige is awesome.
Yeah, he's great. One of my favorite guys.
Paige was struggling with domain parking, and you have experience in that.
Well, yeah, we had one of the first domain parking companies to do, but parking is not the same as it used to be because Google controls that revenue stream. So, back in the day, we had our first parking platform before Google was Google in 2000, I think, and monetized parking links for our customers back then. So, but parking, obviously there's a place for parking still. It still makes money. Parking Crew is one of my favorite companies to work with. They just got acquired by CentralNic.
Yes.
And we have a special platform on Parking Crew, not to monetize so much, but to monitor. I like their tools for monitoring the value of domain names and traffic and click-through rates and the bid forms that we use. They can tell me what names get the most interest and what names float to the top in terms of our process of choosing names for the live auction. I use their tools a lot. Okay. So parking has its place because it still gives a page that has relevant linguistic click-through data that's valuable for a domain name. So, if you have a good linguistic domain name, you're gonna see in parking, not necessarily so much in money as much as you did in the past, because it's probably 10% of what it used to be. But you get good important data from that information. You get click-through relevance, and you know what the RPM is, and you know what the value of that click is if it does get clicked on, and you can use that as a sales tool.
Okay, and returning to the question, your future plans, maybe something brave and daring.
Well, I do broker very high end domain names still, and I do the auction for NamesCon, and I'll probably do 1 or 2 auctions, like this year. Just like with NamesCon, I'll probably do their European auction as well. I have a lot of things going on outside the domain industry. I've got property in Costa Rica, and I have an adventure park there with a zip line and zip lines and animal sanctuary. That's really
that's fantastic.
One of the best in the world. And I'm an investor in that. And we're opening up a really high-end beach club down there on the beach, like a Nikki Beach style beach club that's going to be opening up in the next year or so. And we have a big rental villa there that we rent out. That's a really luxurious villa that has a beautiful view of the ocean and sunset. And I have my hands in a restaurant here in town and a hotel and some other things.
Awesome.
Other than that, I'm enjoying my kids and getting them out of the house to go off to college and getting ready to go skiing in February and traveling a little bit and enjoying my family and my friends and my life.
Fantastic. Before we go to the next question, do you need to see your dog or something?
Sorry, what?
Is your dog fine? Yes.
My dog?
Yes, your dog was fine.
Yeah, I have a couple of dogs here. They're barking.
So here is another question. And the main thing is down there, where Monte sees domaining in 5 or 10 to 20 years from now.
That's a good question.
Yes.
Well, I do see more relevancy for new TLDs for sure. As more and more companies are coming into existence and more startups, they're going to be looking for domain names that meet their needs and that have linguistic value. So that's where new TLDs are going to start to come into play. I'm not saying that .com names are not going to stay important. Of course they will, because just like the 800 number story I just told, all those Fortune 500 companies that have 800 numbers still have their 800 numbers and they still use them. But what becomes more relevant is things that, that are more relevant to their business practices and how they use the domain name. So I do see new TLDs picking up in value and in importance over the next 5 to 10 years. I believe it or not, I think that the current corporate market has been stagnant in terms of how important their domain names are. And now they're starting to see that. So there's a lot more transactions going on that are relevant, both in private and in public. So even today, there's more domain transactions happening that happened, 5 years ago. So I think that will continue. Traffic on the web in general is supposed to increase by 4 times in the next 5 years. So four times the internet traffic in the next 5 years, and internet users are going to double. So double the users, 4 times the traffic, 4 to 5 times the traffic. Continents like Africa, which is only 17 or 18% penetrated on the web, will become a lot more important and a lot more valuable. So the African market, I believe, will start to emerge in the internet in general, which means that domain names for them will become more important. 80% of their access to internet is on mobile phones in Africa. And so they're not using laptops and iPads and stuff like that because they never had access to them, but their mobile phones are. So there'll be more mobile reliant access and access to websites and mobile viewing of website importance because of that. And of course, apps will become more important. But everybody used to say apps will decrease the value of domain names or make domain names go away. And that's not going to be true because every app has its own domain name and website. So if there's 1 million more apps coming on board in the next year, there'll be 1 million more domain names registered because they need their domain name to have a website in order to download the app. Or if they go to the App Store, it still has to reference back the terms and conditions on the website and offer products and services and their own support on their website. So if there's more and more apps, there's more and more domain names registered. If there's more and more whatever on the web, e-commerce sites or whatever, there'll be more and more domain names registered, and they'll still remain and become important, in my opinion.
Can I ask you, what would you suggest young domainers, new domainers who are just stepping in? Which are the mistakes not to make? So everybody thinks that that people can't get a good domain name because they lost the opportunity back 5 and 10, 20 years ago because .coms were taken. But one of the things that our auctions do is give those new domainers an opportunity to acquire really good domain names in .com, .net, .org, and other extensions at reasonable prices because there's a lot of them for sale and people are moving on to other things. And so they're flipping out of some of their domain names. And so they have the opportunity to get them. So, yes.
Some of the mistakes I wouldn't make is registering thousands of domain names in, any one given extension, not knowing what the future of that extension is going to be. So I would diversify a bit and I would look at the most popular trends and, technology trends and what's in the news and some of the future trends that are coming, and use your head before you register a bunch of domain names. I would stay, the shorter the better. I would stay with keywords and dictionary terms and urban dictionary terms and some of the new sequencing of domain names and 2-letter and 3-letter and 2-number and 3-number names will always have value because they're a rare commodity or rare asset. Those types of decisions are, going to be very important as well. Developing a website instead of just holding on to names is important as well. So, do something with a couple of the domain names, build a website. Now the tools are so easy to build websites. It's, everybody has a website template builder, and all the registrars have website builders that are pretty easy, and you can put up some basic content and have some presence.
So let's say you had $2,000 right now and half an hour time to invest in for the first domainer. What would you do? The first places you would visit and.
Well, the market, the
course, without using your friends. Come on, your network is.
Well, I mean, if you're not gonna bid at our auction or try to get a domain name, I mean, there's lots of platforms that you can get good domain names with that $2,000. Either a couple of them or whatever. So the Afternic Marketplace and GoDaddy Marketplace and Uniregistry Marketplace and there's many others. The Epic Marketplace. So there's lots of names listed in various places that are really good and. Not everybody's looking for a 10 times return on their domain name. Some people are looking for a 20% return. So they're repricing their names at something reasonable. That's more like a normal business investment. So, back in the old days, guys that were my customers were looking for 10 to 100 times what they spent on a domain name in terms of their return on investment. And that was legitimate back then because, they put out a lot of money on lots of domain names and they wanted big returns on the handful of sales they had every year. But today, if you look at a different strategy of having, a 20% return to a 50% return, which a lot of people are doing, that's a good return on investment for domain names and being able to buy in and flip out. And a lot of people are very successful at that. And so that would be what I would do with that money. So I would buy and flip and buy and flip until I grew either a nice portfolio of names to have to land a little diamond. Or a piece of gold in one of those acquisitions. But I would try to make money, I registered 2,000 domain names before I put anything up for sale. And thank God, even without Google and Yahoo and marketing, just from web traffic and type in traffic, I was able to generate 14 sales my second year that paid for my renewals. What you don't want to do is have such a big renewal debt that you run into a problem that you're not able to be self-sufficient or self-funding. Yes. You want to be able to break even or make money every year to hold that inventory. And that inventory gets expensive depending on what the extension is and depending on how many domain names you have. And now there's going to be price increases. .com is going to go up in price by 7% or so over the next couple of years. So, even your domain names that are cheap don't become so cheap anymore. That $8 and something moves up to $10 pretty quickly. And so that increase adds up when you have hundreds of names or thousands of names, of course. So the carrying cost of that inventory becomes expensive. So you need to generate sales to pay off that inventory unless you're loaded and you can wait it out. I don't think you can wait it out like you used to in the old days. I think you have to generate sales on a regular basis to be successful.
Maybe out of this auction, could you point out like 3, 4, maybe 5 names from this GoDaddy auction or NamesCon auction?
That are what? That
be good as the first investment. I am an advocate of not buying rubbish names. Better buy 1 or 2 good names, hold on them. Even if you don't sell them, at least you are not buried in renewals.
Right. So the good news about this auction is that there's a ton of names that were at no reserve. So instead of picking out a specific names, I would look at the no reserve names.
Can I show your screen?
What's that?
I can show your screen, and then we can quickly.
Yeah, so I don't need to click on anything, right?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, so this is really small for me to see, but
okay, you can zoom in.
What's that?
You can zoom in easily. Control.
Yeah, I'm trying to see here.
Yes.
I can't. Here, you know what? It's better yet. It's
just open your tab and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. Yes. So, so you can see that some of the names that have met reserve already, like here's a great name right here, med.org, which is met reserve. So now it's at $5,200. Okay. I mean, that's a fantastic name. That was at no reserve. And now it's at it's at $5,100. So I would look for the names that already hit reserve that already have good prices on it. Some of the 3-letter domain names. Now, if you have less money, I would look at some of the names in the back.
So let us say a person has got a budget of $2,000. That's it.
Of $2,000?
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure what's going to sell less than $2,000. I mean, here a popular name that's getting a lot of interest is this Earthlings.com. name.
Okay.
It's already hit reserve, but it's under $2,000 right now. I think it's going to go well above $2,000. There's things that are trending like hempgrowing.com. That's another good name that was priced at a very low reserve price. I'm looking for some other ones that are really good. There's so many good names in here. There's a good hack of a domain name, which is single.es. So the Spanish extension for singles. So
Okay.
it's SINGL.es, and it spells singles. Those hacks are really good and valuable and good shorteners as well. That's priced to sell as well.
And there are no restrictions for owning Spanish names now?
No, that's wide open.
Yes.
That's wide open. A lot of the .net names are priced really good and at no reserve, and same with the .org name. So you don't have to be all about .com because .net and .org are extremely popular, especially with all the publicity with .org and what's going on there. There's nothing wrong with having .org names for the future because they're going to become more valuable, in my opinion, especially with a private company that's going to make some investment on making it a big extension, in my mind. So I would look at the 3-letter .net and .org names, the ones that spell out words for sure. And there's some that there's going to be a handful of names that are just going to be entered in today or tomorrow that are going to be fresh to the party, that are going to have some really good action on them that will be new, that I would invest in for sure.
Okay, really interesting list.
Yeah, a lot of really good names with keywords in .com, .net, .org, and other extensions that are priced to sell here for sure.
Awards.net, yes.
What's that?
Awards.net.
Yeah,
yes.
Lots of good .net, .org names, and of course .com names. But you can pick up some of those .net and even some 4-letter .com names. You'll be able to pick up for $2,000, which they're rare. They have limited quantity. So
4-letter ones.
Yeah,
4-letter coms.
There's a lot of 4-letter .coms on the list that are priced under $2,000.
And decent ones, yes.
Oh yeah, lots of really decent ones.
Not the horrible ones.
Yeah, I mean, there's a wide variety, but to some the horrible ones are good names, and to some the great names are horrible names. To each his own. So that's why we put a nice variety of them in there. So you can choose for yourself.
And what would you say to the established domainers?
Well, what do you mean about the auction?
No, just a tip to domainers who've been in the industry, let's say for 5 years, for 7 years.
I would look to the next couple of years of not holding so much inventory and putting it back on the market. But there's a new audience of names that which we just talked about, of some of the newcomers in the industry that are starving to get in, and they would like to get some of the domain names that have been held for a while to do stuff with and to make that investment. So holding on a bunch of inventory doesn't really make sense to me in these days. I think that you need to turn some of that inventory and take some profits off the table, and then offer some of those new domain names to some of the newcomers in the industry that can make something of them, or keep the market going by flipping them as well and building something up in the future. If everybody held all the real estate in the world and never sold it, then no one ever would be able to buy a piece of property. So, it takes buyers and sellers, and to keep a market fluid. And the more fluid our market is, the better it is for everybody. And it raises the water for everyone. It raises the tide for everyone. So that's in new extensions, existing extensions, everything. To hold and to hoard the names in this market doesn't make any sense to me, especially with a bunch of new TLDs still coming. ICANN's going to put another 1,000 on the market probably in the next couple of years. So then you're going to not have 1,000 additional TLDs. You're going to have 2,000. And when you have so much inventory on the table, it does devaluate the prime piece of real estate. Just like
not the prime one, Monte.
Of course it will, because if I can get the same extension, if I can get the same keyword in another extension at a cheaper price, as a new generation user, who doesn't care that much to get a .com, then I'm going to go for that choice.
Just let them grow. Let them grow.
Well, just remember, once upon a time, there was only one toll-free number, and it was 800. Now there's 20 of them. So, and all 20 of those toll-free numbers are fully used.
Yes.
So it took years to do, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen with new TLDs too. So, .8, 888 is almost as popular as 800, and 877 is just right behind that. So the same thing happens with extensions. There's not only going to be one .com that's going to hold the market forever when there's all these other choices. It's just natural behavior and history and evolution over time for new users that they're not going to use a .com if they're a new user like my kids. Again, they don't. If you ask your children, they don't know what .com stands for. I bet you half the people on this call, on the show don't know what .com actually stands for. So, it's not a dictionary term. So
what does it stand for? Commercial?
Yeah, it's commercial, but it's commercial, but people would think it's communication and community and commerce. And, so there, if I asked a room of domainers at a show 3 years ago, half of them got it wrong, at a domain conference. They didn't know what .com stood for. So it's not a dictionary term, where a lot of these new extensions are dictionary terms.
Yes.
We have .cars and, .law and, and .insurance and, names that are common sense words. And we put a name before that makes sense, like buy.insurance or buy.cars. One would say that buy.cars might be more valuable someday than buycars.com when the com doesn't mean anything. And two keywords in the front and the back of that dot drive traffic. So it's just something to think about over time. Again, I started my company in the .com era, and I sold tons of names in it, and I'm a true believer in it. But things will evolve over time.
But before that, Google has to let those names in the search results.
Well, they are, and Google. Ironically, Google is the owner of 70 new extensions themselves, and so is Amazon. And so is, and Microsoft has a ton of them too. So they're obviously invested in them for a reason. They obviously went out and got these extensions for a reason. They didn't do it just for just doing it. So they all have generic extensions that they're launching. Amazon is .pay.
And somebody has been talking that you have changed the size. No, you are all about the new Gs. Absolutely.
No, I believe in them. It just takes time. People can't expect it to happen in a couple of years. It's going to happen over time.
Monty, and plus, in the very beginning, you were involved when you were involved in .NET, there was something about creating new GTLDs as well.
So once upon a time, before I sold my business to Oversee, Bill Gross from Idealab, approached me, and we had a deal on the table to buy my first company before it was moniker. It was called Domain Systems, and we were going to run the new .NET business. So the new .NET, basically, they're the first ones that had .sex and some of the new extensions, because Idealab touched 50% of all browsers on the internet back in the late 90s. So they had Earthlink, they had Mindspring, they had Cars Direct, they had jewelry.com. They bought the .tv registry, so they owned that as well. They had, 25 incubator companies all under one roof in a big incubator, all with tons of traffic and tons of internet presence.
Yes.
And so Bill Gross said, why does ICANN get to control what extensions are created? What if I can do it myself?
Yes.
And so we had a deal on the table. I was moving to Pasadena, California with my, at the time, fiance and first wife. And we had a deal on the table and a contract signed. And then in 1999, the internet crashed. And two of their big businesses, lost 90% of their total value. And so they had pets.com as one of them, and a couple others, and their public offering, value went down the tubes at the time, and that deal fell apart. And so back in the day, I was going to be one of the pioneers of that. But that was a long time ago. That was in 1999 when we.
Well, sometimes I do hear that. Well, people say internet crashed or something like that. Big boom happened. Well, nothing happened. Just few big companies lost.
Well,
Huge.
no, a lot of companies got hurt, but ironically, in those days, that's what kept me in business.
Yes,
that kept me in business when that internet explosion happened, because then people needed to sell their assets to get money, and so I was the only game in town selling those assets,
of course, and established one,
because I was established for 4 or 5 years by that time.
And
liquidations. So we sold millions of dollars worth of domain names back then, helping companies recover costs and stay in the business. And new companies that bought their assets became big, thriving entities to this day as a result of that. So it's amazing how the world turns, and what happens in the evolution of the internet. It's very ironic.
So nobody has submitted any names. Let me try. Teens.co.uk.
Kings?
No, teenagers.
Are you asking me if it's submitted?
No, if I could submit a name. It is a name of mine. 80% of my domain names. I hold
so .co.uk obviously is a popular extension. We have Queen, Queens, I think queen.co.uk and king.co.uk already in the option.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, in pre-bidding. So again, the .co.uk is a limited market to the British, community. So it is a popular extension. It's not going to be as popular as some of the other extensions that are in the auction.
Obviously, yes.
Because, a lot of Americans probably aren't going to be buying .co.uk names.
Okay. So, and regarding the European names or country extensions, you have German ones and British ones, yes? The UK ones.
We have some .uco.uk, some .uk names. We have the .es names because they're some of them are I explained we had singles with .es, which is a hack.
Yes. Sorry, did you say separate .uk ones?
Yeah, we have a .uk. We have .co.uk and .uk.
That's a, and do they come in pairs or separate?
Some of them came in pairs and some are separate. So there's a handful of them in pre-bidding. Nothing selected for auction yet, but they're in pre-bidding.
Do you accept them as separate ones?
I think they were submitted as together. So
well, now when market has become open, many domainers are selling the .uk ones and they are keeping the .co.uk ones.
Yeah, probably it was the first established name.
Well, okay. Anyway,
yeah.
My suggestion.
So there's some German extension names.
Knowing British market, I would never ever suggest anybody buying .uk without .co.uk.
Yeah,
and otherwise, and vice versa. Yes.
Yeah.
And German names, yes. Sorry.
Yeah. We have x.de in there. There's w.de in there. So some single letter rare names are in there. There's a couple other .de names in there. I have to look through the whole list, but there's various extensions. There's some .tvs. There's some other extensions that are more popular extensions. And that has a market. You can't put in names in an auction like this that have little markets or have restrictions. Obviously, you can't do that. So,
fantastic, Monty. And something for the end, where everybody should go.
Just everybody who's interested in a bidding on domain names, please go to sign up for the remote bidding system, which you can get to from the link that you provided, which is the rotd.com link, and hit the NamesCon auction link, and it gives you all the information about how to bid, how to sign up, and that platform. People can start signing up for remote bidding now to participate in that. And remember, the auction's at 4:30 Central Standard Time, and it will run till about 7:30 Central Standard Time on Thursday. And then all the other names will remain in the extended auction through February 14th. So there'll be lots of opportunity to bid in the extended auction as well.
It's Valentine's Day.
Perfect day. Perfect day to buy your loved one a domain name.
And Monty, it was absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time, and good luck to everybody for in the auction. I hope to see as many people as I can at that NamesCon, and if not in NamesCon Texas, probably in Germany in the summertime.
Fantastic.
All right. Thank you. Take care.